Hi, I'm Kelly, one of the educators with the Virginia Living Museum, and welcome to Stop! It's Shadow Time! We're going to be learning today about how you can tell time with your own shadow. We've got a lot to cover and we're going to do a great outdoor activity, so let's get started. Everyone knows how to make a shadow, right? It's pretty easy. All you need to do is start with a big, bright light source. I'm going to use one like this, a really big flashlight. And in order to make the shadow, you have a big bright light, you put something solid in front of that light, and then you're going to see a shadow, an image of the outline of that object against the wall or wherever you're shining the light against, all right? You can even do it with your hand. Some people are really good at making shadow puppets. I'm not so good at them, but I can do a couple. Now, once you've made a shadow by blocking the light with something solid, well, you can change that shadow in two different ways. One way you can change the shadow is you can move the object. You can move your hand around, make your shadow puppet move or talk, things like that. Or you can move the light source. If the light source moves, your shadow's going to move in a very predictable way. It's going to change based on the angle that the light source is making with your object. So that's two different ways that we can change shadows. The one where the light source appears to be moving is the kind of change that we're going to be looking at as we find a way to tell time using our own shadow. All right, we're getting ready for the outdoor portion of our activity, and so we need to gather our materials together so we'll be ready to go. The first thing you're going to need is some sidewalk chalk. Get as many colors as you can so you can make your project really colorful. The second thing you're going to need is a compass. I have a compass on my cell phone, so I'm going to use that kind of compass. If you need to get a cell phone compass, ask your mom or dad or your brother or sister if you've got someone like that who's got a cell phone who can download a compass app so you can use that. The third thing you're going to need is a buddy, because this project requires at least two people working together. Okay, the first part of our outdoor activity involves choosing a really good spot to set up. You're going to be drawing with sidewalk chalk, so you need to find a place that has nice, flat, hard surface ground. Doing this in your backyard might be fun, but it's a little hard to draw with sidewalk chalk on your lawn. So you might want to look to a driveway or a space where you've got a good flat surface. You also want to make sure that that location gets plenty of sun all day long. Not just for 1 or 2 hours, but as many hours as you can get. All right, once you've chosen a good space, now we're going to get you set up for actually doing some work with that sidewalk chalk. Go ahead and pick a time that you're going to start this project. Make sure that it's the top of an hour, like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning. It really doesn't matter what hour you start with. You just want to make sure that you're doing your first location and measurement at the top of an hour. Okay, so a little bit before that hour starts, you're going to want to go outside and do this setup. You'll need maybe about 15 minutes before you get to the top of the hour, at the most, to make sure that you're ready. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you get yourself oriented correctly. And that means using your compass. You want to make sure that you're standing in your nice sunshiny spot facing to the north. That means that south and also the sun should be behind you. And you should be able to see your shadow in front of you. So use your compass, holding it nice and flat in your hand, and turn your body until the little line on the compass points right to the letter N. That'll tell you that you're facing north. Okay, now that you've got yourself facing north, you want to go ahead and stand with your feet just a little bit apart, because the next part of this is that your helper is going to trace your feet. That way, you can find this same position to stand in again every time without having to use your compass. So let them trace around both your feet so that you've got a nice clear impression of where your feet were, and that's going to give you your place that you're going to stand every hour, because we're going to make repeated measurements of our shadow. All right, now that you're standing in your special spot, your feet are marked, you're ready to go. Now, wait for the exact top of the hour. If you're starting at 1 p.m., watch your cell phone clock and make sure that you wait until exactly 1 p.m. Once you get to the top of the hour, have your helper make a mark where the top of your shadow is, the shadow of the very top of your head. Have them trace the top of your head or make a mark or a design, whatever they want to do, and then label it with the time. You go ahead and you label it with the time you made that measurement. That's what you're going to do every hour on the hour. So if you're starting at 1 o'clock, once you've made your first mark for the top of your head, then go ahead and wait an hour and come back and do the same thing at 2 o'clock. And then do it at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock and on until you run out of sunshine hours. If you started in the afternoon and you'd like to get some of the morning hours, go ahead and wait until tomorrow and start again once you get up in the morning. You don't even have to worry if you end up doing some of the hours out of order. If you did 1 o'clock and you missed 2 o'clock, you can still go ahead and do 3 o'clock and catch up on 2 o'clock another day. What matters is making sure you're making your measurement as close to the top of the hour as you can. Okay, so let's talk about what's happening here. If you've been following along and making your marks every hour on the hour, you're going to very quickly notice that your shadow doesn't always point in the same direction. It changes depending on what time it is. Well, remember what we learned about shadows earlier. We talked about how there's 2 ways to make a shadow change. One way is to move the object. Well, we didn't move you. You're standing in the same spot every time we make a measurement. The other way is to move the light source. And that's what's happening here. You're actually seeing the effect of the rotation of the Earth. We're seeing light coming to our spot on the Earth from a different angle as the sun appears to move across our sky. So that means that every hour your shadow is moving a little bit because the angle that the sun is making with you is changing a little bit. And that's why this is a good clock, because the sun is pretty steady. It moves across our sky in the same way every day because, of course, the Earth's rotation is very steady. So therefore, you're going to be able to use this drawing to measure what time it is whenever you want. Once you've marked all of the daylight hours on your surface, you've just made yourself a personal sundial. Now, regular sundials use a triangle, a wedge, called a gnomon. And that gnomon casts a shadow when the sundial is standing in the sun. And we can see the shadow of that gnomon on the dial of the sundial. And as the sun crosses our sky during the day, the shadow moves and points to different times on the dial face of the sundial. Well, you're doing the same thing. You're the gnomon in this case, and your shadow is changing. Now, you have to use the same person each time you do the measurement, because you'll notice if you swap roles, if your helper stands where you are, their shadow is different than yours. They're a different height, and so they're going to have a different size shadow, and that means it's going to work a little bit differently. That's okay. You can even mark 2 different people's shadows if you want to. Just make sure you keep track of who's who. Go ahead and decorate your sun clock if you haven't started that already. You can make some beautiful designs. One of the most wonderful things about sundials is that they're usually very artistic. So go ahead and draw angles, pictures, pretty things around your sundial. One thing you might want to try is if your helper has traced the top of your head, take the tips, the ends of that arc that they drew, and draw them back to a point between your 2 feet. And that way you'll have these beautiful little angle marks that help you show where the hours are on your sundial, and it'll give you some areas that you can section off and draw and design in different ways. Your sundial isn't forever, it's just sidewalk chalk, so eventually it's probably going to rain, and that means you'll have all of your work washed away. But that's okay, part of the fun is getting to create it again. You can do this over and over again. We recommend that you take pictures of your sundial though, when you've got it on a nice sunny day. Go ahead and snap a picture, because if you keep doing this month after month, you're going to notice another change in your shadow. But this one takes a long time to see the differences. If you continue to make sundials month after month after month, you're going to notice a big difference between a sundial you make now or close to summer and a sundial you make later on close to winter. You see, the days are much longer in the summertime, and that's because our part of the Earth is tilted towards the sun. That's giving us longer days, and it's also giving us shorter shadows because the height of the sun at noon is much, much higher up. You'll notice that your shadow in the middle of the day is actually quite small, and it gets much longer as you go later through the day and the sun gets lower in the sky. Well, in the winter time, you're going to see the opposite effect. The days are going to be quite short, and your shadow is going to be quite long all day long. Even at the highest point, even around noon, the sun doesn't get but so high in the sky. And so you tend to have a much longer shadow during the winter time. Check it out. Keep those photos and see if you can see the difference as you make different sun clocks throughout the year. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning about shadows and sundials and sun clocks today, and I hope you're going to get outside and make some sun clocks of your own. If you get some good pictures of your sundial, please go ahead and share them. We'd love to see how you're doing with this activity. Thanks so much for sharing some fun with me, and I'll see you next time.